from the smooth course of her leg to the shape of her thigh, gently meandering along her unbuttoned strides that accent her slender figure. Her silken and mother-like femininity is overwhelming, and in my broken English I cannot describe her in the right words. Her hair falls across her pretty face and down her naked shoulders and her arms and searching hands. Hands that search and search in search of the moment in which everything moves according to the way it should, without force or deliberate hesitancy, when everything, including touch, is experienced in a natural manner. Her exposed belly button continually catches my eyes. I find it hard to avert my gaze and focus on other things, and every now and then they are drawn back to the same point. I wonder if she noticed. I definitely stand in admiration of woman after my long and arduous exile, seeing everything now in a new light. I find I have a deeper awareness of woman's intricate and intoxicating makeup. I have been battling with myself to expose my own masculinity. While I am sympathetic towards women, I do not want to be one of them anymore. I am quite content at my masculine vantage point, and will reach out to touch her from here. Through a night of soft love-making, by shadows and the illumination of 3 candles, there is a sadness at what I have seen with my eyes, and the image of how many have been inside her, and how many she has let enter her, and the blissful communion of, she won't let me in her yet, and the waking dream of, I don't want to go to work, and let's stretch out the minutes, and look at the clock every 5 minutes, and perhaps there is time to love each other once more before we must leave the night and re-enter and face the day again. Have you ever fallen in love before? That is not for me to say. I am so sad. I wanted to resign to lying on your woolly chest and giving way beneath my tension and inhibition, and feel the soft caress of your breasts and hardened nipples, which I want to caress like a fairy's wings, but not hurt you, and I am afraid of hurting you. Painted feet and black and white photographs of painted feet and legs and hands, and the looming prospect of an overworked masterpiece, saved by intermittent loving and touching and love-making and desire, and climaxing too early, but having the decency and love and affection to continue caressing her 50 times, until we must finally breathe and release our bated breaths and tighten chests and hearts, and although we don't want to, eventually fall asleep, for a few years, by the perfection of the rocks, and the candle-lit moon, and the music of the waves, and lit cigars, and cold milky coffee, and disappointments, and desires, and fatigue, and unnecessary worries, and complications, and time spent alone, to think and reflect and ward off the creeping thoughts of the many that have been inside her already. I want that sensation again, when I am alone, in my lonely and enchanted castle, dancing naked with shadows by flickering candlelight, pretending to read, making up wild stories while they pretend to listen to me, ridiculing me afterwards. My glasses and my hair and my isolation and my intelligence and my mouthful of ice cream and my solitary confinement to cigars and tea. I do not have time for you. I want to be around you all the time. I want to be in you all of the time. I am afraid of releasing myself into you. Why do you like me? I am thirsty. I have no more tea to drink. I cannot lie by myself any longer. The summer resigns to a shorter evening sky, and my soul, it seems, has resigned herself to an infinite summer, and confusion as to which month it is now, or how many minutes are left, and how many hard and cruel exteriors must be fronted and yet concealed, and how the strain leaves him dangling his feet by the river's edge, playing love songs to himself, while the waters and people rush by, and he is minutes away from an endless sleep, and yet, the city seems easier to wander, and through the streets, old faces are encountered, on orange notebooks, and jealousy, and waiting, and longer hair, and a seat on a throne beneath loud and quiet music, and a painting that is nearly forgotten. I don't have time. I don't understand time. Her kiss falls on my neck and fades with the music, and a cup of liquid chocolate, and a deep trust in which my words are borrowed for one night, and I sleep peacefully, and there is no darkness when I arise in the morning. In search of the continuation of my words, a table is set aside for me, with checkered adornments, and a complimentary cup of tea, and a smiling reception, and candles, and a tearless farewell in a bustling marketplace, with kisses, and a song, and laughter. And as soon as my back is turned, a tear that trickles down my face and lands on a coloured fusion of souls, somewhere, in an isolated cafe, which heralds the birth and the beginning of more stories and words, and sunnier summers, and more laughter, and the desire to be free. I know you as you are now. I close my eyes to your penis between my breasts and around my throat. I have to go. Me cobras. Did I dream you? You are really here. You are still here. You are here again. I'm watching your style. I'm watching your style. I'm watching you run a universal mile. The way you grow your hair, and the way you hold your cigarette. On the outskirts of murderous rebellion and teenage social structure. And your need to wear women's clothes because you were born a different way. With a coconut-shaped head and a big nose, and the eventual need to impress the people around you, and subsequently treat them like shit. Proclaiming yourself the gaylord of the streets and the flower bombs, and your name called up to the highest story, in your manner of broken glass, and stolen music, and paranoia, and your armchair by the window, and your recollection, and re-encounter, and re-experiencing of the old city streets. It would be nice to revisit those days, sit by the river again, and weep continuously with the same weeping tree. There is not enough light in here. You need to be in the light. It may not seem like much, but I have actually tidied up your world a good bit. It is now possible to see the trees and beyond, and we can now hear the deafening chorus of the birds, and their orchestral vision of my breast, clutched in your absence, as though your hands were there, and I could sense your hand on my motherhood, until I fell asleep. And on the reopening of my eyes you were not there. The hand was my own, my bed far too big for one lover, my castle colder than yours, my thoughts fluctuating and subdued, your kiss gentle and passionate, despite my stale breath from the night before, despite my waves of descent into sleep, despite my eyes that remain locked on your Persian ceiling. Green, we will meet again. It has taken 300 years for the cloud of confusion to lift from my soul, and its arrogant demands, and its conceited wrongdoings, and its deliberate and poetic distortion of time. I have a pain in my neck, back and shoulders, and I am developing a hunch, and I am cursed with this hunch for the rest of my life, and I am destined to carry you on my breast for the rest of my days. I could sense the taste, and I tasted the sensation of your adulterous hand, and its indiscreet movements through the falsity of the winter sunrise, and the lonely seagull, and the promised sympathies of childhood stories, and your silence, and your good looks, and your bold and snake-like charm, and your unwitting commitments to a delayed and slowly evolving gallery, with your life being in the hands of another woman, and her innocent childishness, and her power over me, and her destruction of my home, and her unfaithful matrimony, to another woman, by a urinal and the smell of disinfectant, somewhere in a lonely jazz lounge. Have you noticed how polished these walls and floors are? Is the mushroom-like fungus that grows from my armpits the source of all your attraction? And have you felt and seen the scabs on my feet that you once looked beyond and didn't see, or pretended to see, or pretended that they weren't there? And you tasted beyond the stench of garlic on my breath, and my suppressed and newfound creativity, and my pavement scribblings, and my internal voyages without the comfort of a guiding hand. The music is just a bit too loud, and I haven't got the balls to tell you. Please tell me if you ever stop loving me. There will be an ocean of outdated letters waiting for you when everything has come to an end, and you are only a distant memory, and your 2 children are mourning the death of a man who thought he was, and could have been, and maybe would have amounted to something. The lone seagull is screaming its falsity amidst the sunrise of this bitter journey. My stomach hurts, and I could not feel you for almost 300 years. 5 o'clock in the morning, kind of blue, paint the walls, devil worship, 2 women, scars, photography, a case study, a kiss, 2 kisses, friendship, a mural, a whitewashed wall, a shadow comes over my soul, unconsciousness, a fire. I have no recollection of the night before. When I wake up, I remember how I slept, with a knot in my chest and silent tears and vivid dreams of her face, which I try to push out from my mind as though she no longer exists. Silent tears, and deep and black tears, with my red hair falling across my cheeks and absorbing the moisture of my lipstick-smeared face. Last night she wore black lace, and I fucked her from behind in front of one of my creations. You are really good. You are really good. This is so good. And I awoke. I am chained to the bed, and she is doing whatever she wants to me. Positioned like a poised animal, she dances on my mouth. I wish I had the strength to keep my jaw open. My tongue is tired, although I can only imagine her pleasure. It has always been a fantasy of mine to sit on the edge of the bed with you on your knees, although I have felt a sense of guilt at both the resulting pain you felt and the other direction this made you take, and my overwhelming desire to turn around and fall asleep. I wish you were the first. I wish you were the first. I wish you were the first girl to listen to my words, and I wish that I was the first who had his grip on your heart. Don't you know how many have felt the brush of my creativity across their breast, abusing my boundaries and knocking their cigarette ashes onto the rubble on the floor, until I intervene with an early morning vacuum cleaner to clean up the mess, taking the time to suck some of the excess fat out of her body whilst I do so. We have argued over the title of this work of destructive genius, and we have proudly shown our painted bodies to the world on this autumn morning. I have a lingering smoker's cough that overtakes me like a cancer, sometimes receding and at other times growing larger, depending on what my desires are from day to day. I have lived in many different houses in this civilization, and some bring back bad memories. One in particular reminds me of a dream I once had when I was little about the end of the world, and the end of the end of the end. There was a fat paedophile living there, who ate pizzas by himself in the kitchen. Always the same kind, always the same jar of cold coffee, brewed with tap water, sometimes clean-shaven, always calling me to his room. Fucker. Could he not read the sign on my head that said woman? Could he not see that my hair was long? And could he not see the swollen curvature of my despicable and spotty breasts, or my ticklish laughter whilst I fell asleep, and you waited by the door, and lied to me blatantly, and stole ice cream from my cupboard? Did your head hurt when you walked into the closet door? You look so much better with long hair, but the dick hanging out of your nipple is a bit much, and I think that you should seriously reconsider your sexual orientation. I mean, seriously. Let's treat ourselves. I know I'm getting fat, but fuck it. Life is too long to be worrying about things like that. I want to open your eyes, as well as your heart, as well as your arms, as well as your legs. Everything seems to be occurring in slow motion these days, like those final few minutes before death. And the newspapers have spoken of the shy youth who smiled coyly at the crowd before he began to entertain them. He has a nice smile, secret eyes, a secret life, and is certainly not who he seems to be. I have already tasted the sensation of missing you, and it brought many tears and a late night conversation to which I was not invited. End.